And we live in an angry world. Race relations. Quarantine. I think a little bit of what's going on with the burning right now and the anger and the frustration are people who are a little frustrated with the quarantine. They're a little, I don't know, I'm not into poli-sci, but I do, I have eyes and I have emotions and I don't like it all the time. And man, I've been dancing on that line of loving my neighbor and honoring my neighbor and expressing my liberty. I'm fighting that tension all the time. Going, what's it look like for me to be able to express my individual liberty while knowing that my neighbor is suffering? And that's worth wrestling with. And if you come up with an easy answer, you didn't take it serious. Plain and simple. If you come up with an easy answer, you didn't take it serious. So it's a difficult moment. But the world, there's anger there. I think a little bit of that is just a rub off of that frustration. Politics, fake news, conspiracy theory. We're mad about a lot of stuff, is my point. We're mad about people we've never met. Because of the technology that puts people in our lives we would have never encountered, we're mad about what... I was telling someone last night, I said, I think the great resuscitated sin of the modern church is false witness. And what I mean by that is we are quick to share whatever confirms our echo chamber of ideology. We'll share it, even if we don't know if it's true. We don't really care if it's true. Enough people believe it's true. We'll go ahead and spread it. Under any other condition on the planet, we'd call that gossip and we'd discourage it. But since it's in the privacy of your home and all you got to do is hit share, well, you can say and do whatever you want to do. And I think we're bearing false witness every day about people we don't even know. Yeah, but I saw a documentary. Well, God bless you. Those can't possibly tell lies. They can't possibly make that stuff up. I mean, there's no motivation behind that to tell a different narrative than what you heard over here. Yeah, but I believe it, so I'm going to share it. And I just think that the reality is we're perpetuating anger a lot of times over stuff. We ought to be owning our emotions instead of releasing them so quickly and firing them out in every area of our lives. And so we have this possibility to go into a true tailspin of chaos by giving into those emotions. And I think a lot of what our anger is it's centered around things we don't understand. Why is Cain so mad? Cain is a farmer, and it comes time to sacrifice to God with no instruction. Now, here's where I want to be fair and scholarly. I think that one of the things that we've done in this story is that we have twisted the narrative of this story to include an interpolated theological command. I'm using a bunch of big words there that really just mean this. It's not fair to your audience to take a later theological command from the Bible and then drop it into that setting where they don't know that command and assume that the story's trying to tell you that. Let me give you a classic example. It's right here. All of my life, here's what I've heard about Cain and Abel. God accepted Abel's offering because it had blood in it, and God rejected Cain's offering because it had no blood in it. The command that sacrifice should have blood doesn't happen until the book of Leviticus. So how in the world is Cain supposed to know that an acceptable offering's supposed to bleed? What we did with that is we loved to interpolate Calvary into the Cain and Abel story, and Jesus bleeds at the cross and his blood washes our sins away, and so we love to preach about a gospel without blood. We go, there's a gospel of self-esteem, and no, Jesus needs to die. You just need to fix yourself. That's Cain's gospel. There's a gospel and of effort and works, and you don't need to die. That's Cain's gospel. And man, that stuff will, man, you can just bark and shout and moonwalk across the stage, and people will amen you and just go crazy and lose their minds, and none of it's scriptural. It's fancy, but it's not Bible. That's irony. The irony is you're screaming and yelling about a gospel that's not a real gospel while you scream and yell the non-real gospel. That's the ultimate church irony. I'm going to get them all to shout over this. None of it's real. So the story in Genesis 4 is not that God looks at Cain and goes, no blood, don't accept it. If that's the case, he should tell him. Hey, Cain, you know what the problem is? Your offering doesn't bleed. No. He doesn't tell Cain. In fact, he doesn't even tell Cain why he doesn't accept the offering. And that's telling. Because his question is not, hey, Cain, you know why I won't accept your offering? His question is, why are you angry? The source of your anger is internal. It's something down inside. There's something deep-seated. And I think the very first step in understanding that emotion in Cain is knowing that his anger is not really at Abel. His anger is at God. I can't tell you the people that I've met where their anger is not really at other people. Their anger is at God. That God didn't do this. That God did this. That God didn't stop this. That God started this. I struggled for a long time with what do you say to people who have such tragedy in their lives and they say, I don't know why God didn't stop this. If there's a God, He would have not allowed this. If there's a God, this wouldn't have happened. And I understand why people walk away from believing in that God. I understand. But I think the reality that we realize at Calvary is that God is never standing on the outside watching you go through it with His hand out going, if you'll do this, I'll fix it. And He's never on the outside making it happen, but rather, it's happening to Him too. People say to me, where was God when this happened to my kid? Where was God when this happened to me? And the best answer I can come up with by staring at the cross is, it was happening to Him too. You went through it, He went through it. You cried, He cried. You hurt, He hurt. I don't have any other answer because where does God live? Not on some distant, cold planet where He's got it figured out and we don't. He lives in us. The pain that happens to us happens to Him. The hurt that happens to us happens to Him. So the anger starts often with God, and that's okay. You know what? I think you can tell God that. And I'm going to tell you something that'll shock you. I saw someone the other day that said, you know, Jesus never had to say, I'm sorry. And everyone jumped in and go, yeah, you're right, because Jesus did everything. I don't believe that. I really don't, because Jesus was human. And Jesus knew that sometimes saying I'm sorry is not just an admission of guilt. Sometimes saying I'm sorry is to ease the pain of another person. You mean to tell me you believe that Jesus never walked over to the Apostle Peter and said, I'm really sorry you feel that way. I'm really sorry about that incident. Because honestly, if Jesus never did that, how in the world does He know what it feels like for you to have to forgive or have to say or have to ask for someone to forgive? So this is the part that might shock you. I believe that you can go to God and tell Him that you're mad at Him, and I believe what you'll hear in the Spirit is God say, I'm sorry. Not, I'm sorry you're mad. I'm sorry that this happened to us. I'm working to make it all turn out good. But I'm sorry we had to go through it. Because when you go through it, I go through it. When you hurt, I hurt. I'm sorry that this is the world we live in, and it's unfair, and it's hurtful. But if you live in it, I live in it. You go through it, I go through it. Taking that emotion before the Lord and just laying it at His feet, it's the precious gift of the saints. It's what we get allowed to do.